Hello, I have here in front of me in these two pots a Hardy Aloe, that's right, you heard me correctly, an aloe plant which is hardy in the UK. I've had these two aloe plants in these pots outside in my garden for 18 months and they're doing really well. So great news, there is an aloe which you can keep outside in the United Kingdom. I bought these for my gravel garden. I've had them in pots whilst they get established, and today I'm going to plant them in the gravel garden. Before I get them planted out, I wanted to tell you a little bit that I've learned about this plant. Now you might know this as Aloe Striatula, or I've also heard that pronounced Striatula. I suppose it depends how you want to pronounce it. So Aloe Striatula. Why is it called Striatula? Well, the stem and the leaf sheaths has little stripes on it, and Striatula in Latin translates to little stripes, and I'll be showing you some close-ups. Now this is a hardy aloe, so it's also known as the Hardy Aloe, but it's recently had a name change. I'm going to try and get this name right. Aloiampelos Striatula. So they've changed it from Aloe Striatula to Aloiampelos Striatula. They made it more difficult to pronounce, but anyway, that's what it's called now. Right. It's clump forming, and as you can see at the base here, these have already started to sprout new baby plants which will eventually form a clump, and apparently you can make these into a hedge if you keep them long enough. Now these come from Africa where they live up mountains, so that informs how you keep them, and I'm going to be planting these in a very sunny spot in my gravel garden. They live up mountains which are rocky, so they are used to very hot, sunny days in the summer, but very cold days in the winter. But they don't like water in the winter. So when I plant these out, I will be making sure that the drainage is incredibly good. I will probably put a bucket of gravel in the bottom of the hole, because whilst they can cope with cold, they can't cope with cold and wet. Now, as you can see, I did plant these in terracotta pots, which are breathable, and I added extra drainage to the bottom to ensure that it was drained very well. But in the wintertime, I did move them under my porch where they were protected from the heavy rain. You don't want these getting wet in winter. Now, obviously, when I plant these in the ground, I'm not going to have the luxury of being able to move the pots anymore. They're going to be situated permanently in my gravel garden. I'm going to place them in the sunniest part of my gravel garden, but I will have to do something to enhance the drainage underneath, and you'll see that in a moment. Right, they do form clumps. They can grow to 2 meters wide and 2 meters high, so you've got to be aware of that when you plant them into a space. And you can divide them off and take cuttings. And they also produce flowers, and I'm delighted that this one here has actually started to produce a flower. Now these flowers, evidently, are like red hot pokers, but they're a kind of an orangey yellow, which is nice because I've actually got some red hot pokers in my gravel garden, so they'll kind of almost match. Right, let's get them over to the gravel garden, dig a couple of holes, get these planted in. And so this is my gravel garden. Given what I've just said about the ultimate size and spread of these plants, I'm going to plant them in a position where they'll have room to grow. So I've got a space here. I'm going to place it a bit closer to the edge so that it can encroach over that border of bricks, but not too close to this path given the spiky nature of the leaves. And the other one can go down here. Now they may look tiny now, and I don't mind that because I quite like a bit of space between the plant. Eventually they will bush out, and we'll have a nice display of lovely blooms at the top of each one. So I think that's where these are going to go. Now it's a dull day, it's actually threatening rain, but I'm determined to get this job done today. That's not a bad type of day to plant plants out, because if it was too hot and sunny and you're disturbing the roots, they might dehydrate and go into shock. So I'm quite comfortable with it being quite cool and overcast. Right, so the next thing to do is, now that I've put my robust gloves on, is brush the gravel aside. Now I cheated a bit. I have got weed fabric underneath this gravel, So I'll need to part the weed fabric as well before I dig a hole. And when I've dug the hole, I'll show you how I'm going to plant these to make sure they don't become susceptible to damp roots and therefore root rot. So I've cleared the gravel, pulled back the weed fabric, and as you can see, in my gravel garden, I have soil. Now, that means it's a bit of an illusion. I know people who make gravel gardens who will dig out 2 foot of soil and fill it with rubble and hardcore and gravel. I don't have that, but what I do have, only 12 inches below the soil, is pure sand. So I know that this gravel garden is incredibly well drained. It's also at the top of a slope, so any water runs off. If you were doing a gravel garden on clay soil or moisture retentive soil, obviously you're going to need to enhance the drainage, and that might include digging out a load of soil and putting some rubble in it. Right, I'm going to start digging a hole now. Now this hole, you can see the sand in my soil here actually, and you can see how well drained it is. This hole is only going to be slightly wider than that pot, but it is going to be deeper, and you'll see why in a moment. So let's just clear a little bit of this topsoil out of the way. I'm putting it in a bucket because it's not going to be going back in the hole, because that's going in the hole, and I need to clear it away from the site. Right, so there's the basis of the hole. Not too deep just yet. Right, okay, I'm going to get this out of this pot now because I want to use this pot as a guide. A great way to improve drainage is to plant into a mound, because if you think about it, in that mound the water drains out, and that's been the principle for all the plants in this gravel bed. They've been planted protruding on a mound from the earth so that the rootstock is very well drained. So that's why I'm now going to get this out of here very carefully and use that pot as a guide for depth. Now that has a good healthy rootstock on it, as you can see. You can also see that when I planted that in those pots, I added plenty of crocks. Crocks are basically bits of terracotta pot that have broken, and you put them over the hole and it lets the water through, so that it drains well, but it stops the soil from running through. And I'll keep those and use those crocks another time. But look at that lovely dry rootstock. I say dry, it's damp obviously, but it's not waterlogged and sodden, and none of these roots are showing any sign of root rot. So we'll put that to one side. Now I'm going to use this pot as a guide for the hole. Now I do want it to be slightly deeper than the pot, because I'm going to put a bucket full of pea gravel in the bottom, and that's really going to make it well drained. There's no chance whatsoever of this plant sitting in water during the winter time. Let's get the hole finished. You can see now that that hole is the same depth as that pot, but it's not going to be in a moment because I'm going to throw some gravel in. But I just wanted to point out that what's interesting about my garden is my cottage is 450 years old, and back in the day, before wheelie bins and recycling, the Victorians used to bury rubbish in the garden, and I'm always finding it. In fact, I've just done a video. I dug up a Victorian bottle dump. I'll put a link to it below this one just in case you're interested. Right, there's the pot. In goes the pea gravel. A good layer. You might be thinking, well, there's no nutrients for the plant in that. Don't worry about that. It's much more important that these have good drainage, more than it is that they have nutrients. They will find nutrients. Right, let's just check the depth. Still a little bit deep. More gravel. I have several tons of this gravel, and I would even go and get more if I didn't think it was deep enough. But for me, that is now about the right depth. Can you see? When I put the weed fabric back and put some more soil around that, it's going to be protruding on a mound, and the water in the wintertime is going to get away from those roots. I will just put backfill a little bit of this soil around the edge, and that soil is sitting on gravel, so again that soil will be incredibly well drained. Have I made the point strongly enough that plants like this need to be well drained? I've learned from bitter experience. I had some agaves in this border, and I was told that they were winter hardy, and they are indeed winter hardy providing you do the right thing, and I hadn't planted them in enough drainage. Several people on YouTube informed me how and why I'd done it wrong. There's some more pot. Look. Right, we're getting there now. You can see as I backfill, that plant's on a mound with lots of gravel underneath it. The only thing I need to do now is cut the weed fabric, put it back into position, and put the gravel back in place, and then do the second one. So I will do that after I say goodbye, and you'll see it. Fast forward, you'll see the end result when these are both planted out and the gravel garden is restored. There we go. I've not planted it any deeper than it was. I will leave a little bit of weed fabric missing so that it can spread. And I'll see you soon for some more Aloe Striatula adventures. Enjoy the rest of this video. Bye for now.